But we got you back there. You got an article about Cam Newton, and I think it's a very interesting one, especially with all the stuff that has been going on with his comments the last couple of days. But I think this is a clear indication that he's arrived.
Yeah, if let's say to use the pro wrestling term, if you can get people to react to you either way, whether they love you or whether they hate you, you know that's when you finally gotten over. But the thing I found for him is, as I mentioned before we cut off there, quarterbacks who win the Associated Press MVP award and go on to play in the Super Bowl, they've done it 18 times. They're 6-12, so they tend to have bad games a lot of times. And I started looking, well, is Newton probably he can have a good game or a bad game? And the thing that got me about him was his season was basically two parts. The first half, he's a good but not great quarterback. There's no way he wins the MVP award based on what he did then. Look at the second half of the season, it was phenomenal numbers. And that made me say, well, what happened during the second half of the season to make him suddenly become this great quarterback?
Yeah, and you look at, I said before, the NFL is a copycat league. The problem is you're not copycatting him. You're not finding another guy of his skill set.
No, the colleges aren't going to produce anything like that. And the problem for him is that the Super Bowl is not going to copycat what he saw in the second half of the season, because you take those last 8 games of the schedule, and 6 of those games came against teams that ranked 22nd or worse in yards per attempt, passing yards per attempt. You basically couldn't cherry pick a more favorable set of matchups. And the most troubling thing to me is, let's say Newton faces those teams and he posts phenomenal numbers that nobody else can post. Well, then you can say, okay, this guy is having fantastic games. If you take the quarterbacks from the rest of the league and how they did all season against those teams that he faced, those 6 teams that the 6 cream puff teams that he faced in the second half of the season, you take every other quarterback and see how they did. His numbers are basically even, or in some cases a little bit worse than the rest of the league. The one where he has the biggest edge, he has an 18-to-1 touchdown-interception ratio. That's phenomenal. The rest of the league had nearly 3-to-1 touchdown-interception ratio, so it's not like they were doing badly. So a lot of why he looks so good in the second half of the season is because he had a really favorable schedule.
So you look at this particular game, he most likely will be the MVP of the league, 35 passing touchdowns, 10 rushing touchdowns. If he is the MVP, you look ahead to this matchup, should there be some concern?
There should be. He only had 3 games this year against teams that ranked in the top 10 in the league in ESPN's total QBR metric. That's a metric that measures quarterback performance in all plays, not like passer rating where it's just passing plays. Total QBR takes into account everything, rushing plays, the whole 9 yards. And he only faced 3 teams that ranked in the top 10 in that category. I'm counting the playoffs, too. If you count all 19 games that he played this season, or all 18 games he played this season. So, this is going to be the toughest matchup he's had all season long. And if you look at his history in games against teams that have had really tough defenses in the past, how he's done, he's not fared that well a lot of the time. So I don't say it's a given that he's going to have a bad game in the Super Bowl. It's not going to surprise me if he has a subpar game. And if he's got a subpar game, you have to scratch your head and go, well, how did the Carolina Panthers win the Super Bowl?
Yeah, and, you look at these two defenses, I think most people, saw Denver's defense for the first time the other day and really said, okay, there's something special. I think if you watch the whole course of the year, people really thought that Carolina was a defensive team. Who's got a better defense?
I would think Denver does only because they're healthier. Carolina is missing 2 of its top 3 cornerbacks, and they got away with those personnel limitations in the 2 playoff games, and they could against Denver. But the thing that Denver does, and would have been doing all year, in fact, Denver's used to winning these kind of smash-mouth, grinded-out games because they've had to do it since Peyton started to falter halfway through the season, and they had to do it with Osweiler. So they're used to winning that type of game, and I think Carolina is used to more of a, I don't want to say a shootout game, but they're in that kind of a mode to say, hey, we want to get into sort of a shootout game because we think we can make more big plays than you. I don't think Denver is going to let them do that. Now, if Carolina maybe can force the issue and say, hey, they get an early lead and force Denver to play that type of game, that plays in Carolina's hands, maybe they could do it. But against Denver's defense, I question if Carolina could turn this into the type of contest they want it to be.
KC Joyner is with us here, 97.3 ESPN. We are taking a look at the Super Bowl 50, and it's a good matchup, interesting matchup. 2 really good defenses. But then I guess on the flip side, we'll break this game down a lot more next week. But I think it's starting to spin off into some interesting stuff because both teams are very good defensively. But Carolina's got the number 1 offense in the league. Can Denver keep up?
Yeah, that's the thing. Carolina's does have a really good offense. I mean, they are very good at running the football, and they can hit those vertical passes. But that's the thing. The thing about it strikes about Carolina is people talk about Newton being such a great rushing quarterback, and he is a great rushing quarterback. But when you look at it, he goes, it's about 40 yards per game. I think it's like 35 to 40 yards per game. So I'd like to see if Carolina would decide they're going to go in this game and say, we don't want Newton to just get 40 yards per game like he's been giving us all year on average. Let's see if we can get 60, 70, 100 out of him. Let's see if we can give, because that's one thing Denver struggles against. I believe they're fifth in the league, or fifth worst in the league in rushing yards allowed per carry to quarterbacks who running plays. They don't do very well against quarterbacks who run against them. So I wonder if Carolina's going to say, okay, rather than have Newton try and win the ball throwing the ball and win the game throwing the ball like he's done this year, let's see if we can get 100 yards out of him.
You can read that full article, by the way, on Cam Newton from KC Joyner over at ESPN.com in the insider section there. A lot more to break down on this game as we move forward. I do want to ask you a couple Eagles-related questions. They signed Zach Ertz to a $42.5 million deal. Casey, that puts him in the top 5 at his position in the league. I know maybe Kelly didn't use him as such, but do you view Ertz as a top 5 kind of player at that position?
In a Peterson offense, I would. You look at what Peterson did with Travis Kelce for the past couple seasons and what he's willing to use in there. If you pay Ertz that kind of money in a Chip Kelly offense and you think, okay, maybe 3 times a year we're going to throw a ton of passes and we're going to ignore him the rest of the year, not a good deal. But you put him in this offense, they'll make him a centerpiece of this offense. And it usually, the Eagles are not going to pay somebody that kind of money under Howie Roseman unless they think they're going to utilize him. So I think it's a good signing.
You paying Fletcher Cox, Sue money, Darius money? I mean, he's probably going to be in that range, especially now in this Schwartz system. His numbers might go up pretty significantly. You paying him that kind of money?
I probably do. Usually you only pay that kind of money if you're going to get pass rushes and things, but when you can bring that kind of up the gut pressure, you can do the things you can do with him. Where he can give you presence in the middle, and he can also kind of give you an edge rush too if you want to utilize in certain situations. There aren't that many players who could do that. There might be 5 players who could do what he do at his position. So when you've got that kind of an impact player, I think you've got to pay the big money. There's certain guys you need to break the bank for. He's one of them. All
right, Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Last one for KC Joyner. I know Jason Peters, Doug Peterson said today that he wants to bring him back. A lot of money, 3 more years for him at about $30 million. It's a little bit less than that, but Peters hurt a lot last year. Is it time to cut ties with him if you're Philadelphia?
I think, Philadelphia, you look at the Howie Roseman blueprint, and it's get young players, get them in, pay your money for your younger players and know that, okay, you don't pay money for the older players on the backside of their career. They may end up having to do it if they don't think they come up with another option. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them say, we'll go get somebody we can develop to be in that position because to pay a lot of money for an older player is just not something that the Roseman regime tends to do.
I know draft coverage stuff will get a little bit more intense coming up, but I don't know how much you've seen of Carson Wentz, but the quarterback class, Philadelphia is at 13. Should they be interested?
I think they should in the sense that if they bring in Bradford, you always want to go with you got the good starter, you've got a backup, and you've got a number 3 guy who you can develop into a starter. I think Philadelphia needs that number 3 player they can develop into a long-term starter down the road. And they also need a better veteran backup than they have. So I think given their quarterback question marks, I would definitely be considering a quarterback at their position. Interesting.
We'll get more into the draft. And, of course, Super Bowl 50 next week. KC Joyner will join us. We'll break down the game from all different angles. It's really a intriguing matchup. You think this is Peyton Manning's final game?
Yeah, you're not going to, even if he doesn't go out on top, to go out in the Super Bowl. Yeah, if he wins it, absolutely, I would think he doesn't come back. If the loss, maybe he wants to, but I don't know if Denver would want him back the way he played this year.
All right, more with Casey on Monday's show as we break down Super Bowl 50. Thanks, pal.
Appreciate it.
All right, Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. I don't know what just happened there, but it was a good conversation with Casey. Had a bad song that played in my ear for a little while, but that seems to be gone. Sports Bash live at Chickies and Pete's in Egg Harbor Township. We got the tweets that will come up in just a bit. Plus, you'll hear our conversation with Scott Wright from DraftCountdown.com. Next hour, Carson Wentz is a name you're going to hear a lot of. You'll hear what Scott Wright, the president of Draft Countdown, has to say about him. And Josh Pawnhill at 5:30 tonight. Really cool conversation. He broke down why Sam Bradford might reject a multi-year deal. That's all coming up next hour here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN.
Super Bowl 50, 97.3 ESPN FM, South Jersey's football station.
It happens. You're driving down the road, and up ahead, there's a big truck. No big deal, everything's fine. And then, that big truck kicks up a piece of debris that lands right on your windshield. What do?
Call Allstate Automotive Glass Repair at 856-624-4586. Allstate Auto Glass will repair or replace your windshield, windows, or rearview mirrors, and offers same-day and mobile service that comes to you. Online at allstateautomotiveglass.com.
Welcome to Staples.
Staples guy, my office goes through ink like it's water.
Well, we have the ink you need, and with our 110% price match guarantee, Staples always has low prices.
So we could go through ink like water. We could bathe in the stuff.
That'd just be weird.
Staples. Make more happen. Now get a $15 coupon when you spend $75 on ink or $20 when you spend $200 on toner.
Offer valid on in-store purchases only. Ends 1/30/16. Price match plus the 10% difference discount valid at checkout for items from retailers operating online and retail stores or products sold and shipped by Amazon. Ends 3/26/16. See storestaples.com for detail.
This is Andrew Sykes, manager of Atlantic City Electric's Emergency Preparedness, with another Winter Storm Jonas update for our customers.